Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome back to another piano tutorial. My name's Kyle, and today we're doing the live version of clocks, and this will include all the different variations from the Rush Above the Head era all the way to the Head Full of Dreams era. That being said, please keep in mind that I might miss a few things here and there just because I can't go through every performance. There might be a variation you hear somewhere that I don't touch on here, but I will try to get through all the major variations that Chris does play throughout all those eras. That being said, we're going to go ahead and break this song down piece by piece. Going to teach you the entire song, and as we go through each section, for example, the intro, the verses, the chorus, as we go through each section, I will lay out all the different variations that we have. All right, so real briefly, I'm just going to touch on the intro because in the album version and then in the earlier live versions, he just starts off with the riff, but in some of the later versions, he'll start off with these E-flat octaves down here. So sometimes he'll play that before starting the actual song. Sometimes he'll kind of rock back and forth on it. And then obviously he'll play it when he starts the riff as well. And then more recently, he'll play this B flat before playing those E flat octaves. So keep that in mind there. Now we go to the main riff. I'm going to teach you that first. So main riff, we're playing it in both hands. It's the same exact thing. So we'll just start off with the right hand first. Here's middle C. I'm going to come up here to this formation, G, B flat, E flat. And you're going to play these notes in descending order. And the pattern here is just 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. That's your main pattern there. So there's your first chord, second chord, F, B flat, C sharp. Once again, same thing, that pattern. But right here, you're going to repeat on the same chord. So just play that once again before moving to the last chord, F, G sharp, C. Once again, same pattern. So essentially you're just holding that second chord down for an extra measure or extra bar. Then we end up with this. Same thing for the left hand. So there's the main riff right there. Now we get into some of the variations. First variation we have is with the right hand, he'll play whatever this lower note down here is, so G and then F. He'll play this third note down there with that first note. So for example, so anytime you play that first note up here, you're playing that third note as well. Then something else that he does is he kind of changes the riff up a little bit when he gets to the third chord. So once you get to there, so instead of hitting this F down here, you're going to play G, G sharp, back down to G. And then sometimes he'll only do this with his right hand, specifically I think in the Rush Above the Head era, Live 2003, he'll just do it with his right hand most of the time. But as we get later on, he'll do it with both hands. So once again, for example. Alright, now we get into the verses, and there's not really much here to play for the album version or for pretty much most live versions. However, if you want to play something, you can do something like this. And now obviously for the album version, and then most live versions, there are no chords or piano being played in the verses. However, I'm going to teach you something just because you don't want to not play anything here if you're trying to play a cover. So the good thing here is the chords are literally just the same thing we learned. And you're playing it along with the same kind of the pattern there. So you can play both hands. And with the right hand, you can actually add this extra octave in if you can reach. So right here, you're playing this high G with that first chord. And then with the second chord, you're playing F. And same thing with the third chord. Now what I do when I play this is for the verses, the first verse, I'll play just the right hand. You can kind of do this little slide. Kind of starting with the lower notes, going up to the higher notes. And then second verse, I'll usually have that left hand come in. Now, this is kind of based on the, there was one, I think it was a charity he did back in 2016 at the Oakland Theater. He did play an acoustic version of Clocks, and he does play those chords like that. But in most live versions, or every live version really, he doesn't play anything in the verses, except for I think the Viva La Vida era, where he would play those right-hand chords, but just during the, I believe it was the last half of the verses, just those first two chords he would play. And if you just YouTube Coldplay Live Clocks 2009, 2008, you'll see what I mean, but he just plays those chords, those first two, just with the right hand on the last half of the verse. But there's your verse right there. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward, just keeping those chords. Then after that, we just get back into the main riff. Once again, here we had the left hand coming in quite frequently with those lower E-flat octaves. Alright, so you just repeat that same thing for the chorus as well as the second verse. And then something you can also do as you're going into a chorus or even going into the intro is sometimes he'll play this right hand G note just before starting. So for example. Alright, so before we get to the bridge part, I just want to touch base on kind of the structure of the song because it has changed over time. If you're familiar with the album version, obviously in the earlier live versions, after they play the second chorus, they jump right into this little part here. But in later live versions, they completely cut that part out and they just jump right into the bridge. So we have that second chorus. Then we jump right to the bridge, which sounds like this. Alright, before we get into the riff, I just want to thank Gabriel from Singapore for helping out with this one. He went through different videos and figured out what Chris does play here. So huge thank you to him. Obviously in the album version, I don't think there's anything being played here. It's just more so the live versions. But it sounds pretty good. So we're going to start off with the right hand riff first. We're on F sharp, C sharp, F. And we're keeping the same pattern here. So descending notes, the same 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2 pattern. We have 3 chords, so similar to the main riff here. We can have three shapes. The only difference here is instead of holding that second chord twice, for twice as long, we're going to hold the first one for twice as long. So we're going to play 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and then again. Second formation, we're just moving this F sharp up here down to F. So F, C sharp, F. And then C sharp down to C. And that's it. We repeat that 3 times. After 3 times, we come up here to F sharp, C sharp, F sharp. Same pattern. And then move this F sharp down to F. Same pattern once again. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. And we repeat that twice. And there's the right hand for the bridge part. Now for the left hand, 3 simple chords, starting off F sharp, C sharp, followed by C sharp, G sharp, C sharp, and then G sharp, C. And you're just going to hammer these chords. So pretty much when you play every single note, you're playing that left hand chord. And you transition the chords when you transition that right hand. Sorry about that. So repeat that 3 times like I said, and then once we get to the 3rd time, or the 4th time, we hold that F sharp, C sharp chord. Then we do the same variation here with the right hand we did for the main riff, where we played that thumb note with that first finger, the first note there. So same thing here, you can play this thumb note with that first higher note. And then as we go into the bridge, and then between each kind of going back to the first chord, the transition, we can come down and play these lower F sharp octaves. So coming in from the chorus. Alright, so once we get into the post-instrumental bridge breakdown, obviously we have the album version and even the live 2003 version where he just plays the same riff once again. So we kind of have that variation there. That's just the normal. And then we have kind of like the X and Y era variation where he's playing these low E flat octaves as he's playing the right hand, the riff in the right hand. So kind of just hammering on like that, sometimes maybe a little bit more. That's a version as well. Something else, sometimes he'll play just the right hand riff for the first time around. And then on the second time, I'll come in with the left hand. And then I think more so in the Viva La Vida era, he would come up here and just play the riff up here, this high octave. So obviously you can do that as well. Then we have, this is where things get a little bit interesting. So more recently, I think throughout the MX era, recently, that was 10 years ago, the MX era all the way through, more recently, A Head Full of Dreams, which even that was 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Okay, anyway, more somewhat recently, we have him kind of coming down from that bridge. And sometimes, this obviously sounds better with a live band setting. If you're playing by yourself or playing for a crowd, you probably don't want to do this part. But when he comes down from that bridge, he'll kind of slam on the keys. So, you know, something like that. Obviously, that sounds terrible. It sounds cool when he does it. But he kind of slams on the keys, he comes down, and he plays a few different variations here with this. So, we have 2 E flat octaves in left and right hand. Now the left hand here, for the most part, he's kind of doing the same thing throughout different performances. He's keeping in count, so he's not hammering on like we did with that left hand for the bridge. He's kind of just counting like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So he's kind of just doing that with the left hand. Now the right hand, we have a few different things. We have one version where he's kind of just bouncing back and forth with that right hand. And he keeps that going the entire time. Something else he does for a pattern is he'll do that left hand pattern like I mentioned. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then right hand he's playing twice in between. So there's a pattern as well. So sometimes he'll keep doing that, and then once we get toward the end of a section, so we're going to say the main riff is one section, so right there, that's the end of one section. And obviously for the instrumental break, he plays that twice. So for example, right here what you could do is here, we'll kind of go up with each hand and play E, E, F, F, F sharp, F sharp, G, G, G sharp, G sharp. So essentially just walking up with each hand all the way to G sharp. I have a hard time doing that, but it would sound something like this. Again, I can't really do it myself, but you can do something like that. Something else he'll do is he'll kind of walk the right hand up the entire time, kind of counting in fours. So for example, so I'm walking up each note and then counting in fours. So I'm hitting the notes twice with the right hand, but I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. So for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And he just walks all the way up to B flat. Another variation of that is he'll do exactly that, walking up in fours all the way to G. Once you get to G, and then he kind of speeds it up and he plays it twice. And he does that all the way up to D, which essentially just leads us back to that main riff. So that would sound something like this. Alright, so those are essentially the main versions that he plays for that part there. It does vary, obviously, performance to performance. You probably can find one that I didn't go over specifically, but for the most part, that's what he does. He stays on the left hand, E flat octaves. Right hand stays on that sometimes. Sometimes just walks up individually, but the main kind of pattern there is just twice in your right hand, once in your left. And it can be a little difficult to play, so you also can just go back and forth if you'd like as well. But essentially that's that part there. And then we go back into what would be kind of the chorus slash outro. And then in the album version and in earlier live performances, we have that right hand riff coming in. But for later live performances, he actually goes right back into the main riff here. So he plays that twice usually. And then we get into the ending part where Home Where I Wanted to Go, that part there. Sometimes he'll just sing the You Are part. Sometimes it's just instrumental. Once again, different versions. It kind of varies. But you can play that riff twice there. And then after that, we can play this next riff 4 times, which sounds like this. Alright, so left hand here is just playing the main riff. Right hand, you're up here, you're on G sharp, G, E flat. And you're to keep the G sharp and G, just move this E flat down to C sharp. Hold that middle position twice, just like this chord here. And then for the third one, just move the C sharp down to C. So there's that riff there. Once again, with the right hand, we can add that thumb note in with the first note. And there is something cool here he does as well. I think it mainly started in the X and Y era, but kind of right here, that first time after the full band comes back in, he'll move up here, and he'll play this higher C right there. So C octaves. So it's just G sharp, G, C, and then C octaves. And then once again, just back up. Keep repeating. So usually he just plays that C right there the first time around, and then once we get into like where the Will comes in with a crash, and we get to the home where I wanted to go part, even the outro, once the drums stop, everything stops, we can add this extra octave in just like we did for the C, but we can add it in for the E flat and C sharp as well. So that would sound something like this. Okay, so for this part, things kind of get moved around a little bit, and it's still kind of keeping the same rhythm, same pattern going, the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, same thing there. But for example, right here with the normal riff, on 3, that's when you fall on the lowest note, whether it be E flat, C sharp, or C. For this part here, on 3, you're still hitting that, but we have 1, 2, 3, so on 1, you're playing the octaves, which means on 2, you're now on G sharp, and on 3, you're now on G. So you kind of just fill the gap in by playing G sharp, G, G sharp, G. So I don't know if you understand what I mean, but so instead of 1, 2, 3, 1, it's now 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So things kind of get shifted a little bit. But that's essentially that part there. I usually kind of play that for the last 2 measures of the outro, and then kind of just at the very end for the final outro. So we have that right there. That can kind of go as the album outro as well as like Live 2003. And then we get into some of the later live versions, and there is, once everything stops, the drums and the bass stop, he kind of just stops playing. We just have Johnny on the guitar with the outro, and he'll kind of come in and play maybe that last part of the riff. So the G, G sharp, G, and then just end on that chord there. So all it is E flat octaves in the left, and then G, B flat, E flat, G in the right. And that's for most recent live versions, from like MX all the way to A Head Full of Dreams. He'll kind of do that. Alright, so that does it for pretty much every version of Clocks. I just want to get to the kind of extended jam session we have for the X and Y era, which we have this little outro riff which sounds like this. So honestly, it doesn't sound too good by itself, but it sounds really good in the context of that the song there at the end. But all it is right hand, F, G sharp, F, moves up to G, B flat G, back down to F, G sharp, F, and then back up to G, B flat G, and then G sharp, C, G sharp, and then back down to the F. And left hand, we just add in single notes, F, G, so up to G sharp. So essentially just following this thumb here, F, G, G sharp. But there's that little riff there. I always thought that was really cool growing up. And then obviously for the outro, we just have the clocks riff, and it's just played really fast. Yeah, hard to do, but essentially you just end like that if you want to play that, just with that chord there. Alright, so I think that's going to wrap it up for clocks. I believe that's every major variation we have throughout the years. Obviously, once again, I can't hit every performance, so there might be one or two things that don't kind of line up with a certain performance, but once you kind of have the basic idea down, you can kind of go through yourself and hopefully pick out what he's doing for certain things. But yeah, that's going to wrap it up for clocks. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you to Gabriel from Singapore for helping me out with that little bridge riff there. I've been trying to figure that one out for years, so thank you once again to him. If you guys are still confused or you want to see the song played from start to finish, you don't want to hear my boring talking, you can check out my Synthesia lesson as well as my cover. I will leave a link to those in the description as well as at the end of the video. But that is it for this lesson. Thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one.